After the hot tub, we watched The Red Balloon, and then we watched Harold and Maude, lying on our sides in his bed, him closer to the screen. I didn't like The Red Balloon because it seemed too young and immature for me. Also, I had a feeling I was supposed to like it because he'd chosen it beforehand, the first movie, and this made me self-conscious. Harold and Maude, I loved. He paused the movie when I got up to pee. That's the church in Palo Alto, he said about the church where they meet. Both movies were on laser discs, which looked like bright silver records. He held the disc from the center and edge, not touching the surface, and when the player closed, it made a series of mechanical sounds, 4 notes. The laser disc insertion, the hydraulic thump on the car doors, the click of the lever that controlled the headlights, the noises surrounding him were different. Besides his bed was a lamp with a cloth shade and a gold-colored base. You only had to touch the base to turn the lamp on and off. I tried it a few times. Ingenious. Why didn't everyone have one? Why did we bother with switches and serrated knobs? Time to go to bed, he said after the movie ended. Was it late? I couldn't tell. We existed outside regular time. The mornings with him, too. We would have a timeless quality, more empty space and white light and silence. Unlike the mornings with my mother when we raced to dress in front of the heaters and ate toast in the car on the way to school, the windshield mostly white, waiting for the heat to work. Here, there was no rush, no breathlessness. At night, the crickets made a roar I hadn't noticed before, lying in the bed. The sound would advance towards me over the dark land, the dark lawn, the dark house, and press against my ears. But just when I thought I'd be swallowed up, it would stop, empty. It was terrible and lonely. I felt then to be in this cavernous house with this man I hardly knew. My mother had a string of lentil-sized bells on a ribbon she brought back from India, meant to be tied around the ankles of Indian dancers, and the crickets sounded like these bells. Thousands of dancers moving vigorously, almost in unison, faster and faster, until they all stopped at once. Why don't you wear a watch? I asked the next morning. I was already dressed for school. Fancy men wore watches. I don't want to be bound by time, he said. What's that? I was looking out the kitchen window, pointing to a tall structure that looked like a booth for a ticket collector, with a screen in the front so you could see in, topped by a marionette. It's an aviary for birds. Are there birds inside? No. A friend gave me a peacock once, but it wandered off. Will you get some birds to put in it? Will you get some birds to put in? I asked. Nope. I could tell he was getting annoyed by my questions. How big was 7 acres, I wondered. If you stood on the huge lawn and looked toward the gathered hills with your back to the tennis court and the pool and looked past the aviary, past a huge copper beech tree, the raspberries, more oaks, the building where the water tower would have been, maybe that was where the property ended, where the hills rose up and the forest began. There, he said, once pointing, but I wasn't sure where he'd meant. He put 2 apples and a handful of almonds in a paper bag, a grocery bag, not a lunch bag, and rolled up the top. Here's your lunch, he said, handing it over. The almonds rattled around at the bottom of the bag. I walked out ahead of him. through the pantry, the dining room, and into the huge room with the piano. On a small table in front of the couch was a coffee table book called The Red Couch. The pictures inside were of a worn red velvet couch upon which sat various famous people in different locations around the world. I flipped a page and there he was. In the picture, he looked dreamy, his eyes like vellum. Unlike the others in the book, he steepled his hands, the fingertips meeting, index to index, middle to middle, and so on. The wrists held out from each other like the rib cage of a small animal. Over the next few months, I tried to incorporate the steepled hands into my own repertoire. On top of my desk in class, or on the table before my mother and I ate dinner, or on my lap sitting outside with friends at lunchtime. I could never make it look natural. In that position, ballooned out, my hands felt huge and foolish. We walked out the door. You locked it? I asked. There's nothing to take, he said. You could get more furniture, I said. I imagined how grand the house could be if he'd just get some furniture. I wanted him to be attached to it, so substantially that he wanted to decorate it and keep it. At school, we played a game called MASH. Mansion, apartment, shack, house. Writing down options about cars, husbands, and houses, and then counting out our futures based on a random number. I had first-hand knowledge of all four categories. Even a shack, if you counted the studio on Oak Grove. My father had a mansion. I didn't know anyone else who could say that. Everyone wanted a mansion, and also the best kind of car. Porsche, Ferrari, Lamborghini. At the curve that led over Highway 280, my father said, if you look where you're going, your hands naturally know how to steer toward that point. It's really amazing. He had no idea that I'd driven too, sitting on my mother's lap when I was 6. For him, maybe I had no past. I was simply here now beside him. At the top of Sand Hill Road, he pointed to Hoover Tower sticking up past the roof lines. Look, he said, it's a penis. I wasn't sure what he meant. The penis of Palo Alto, he said. Just look at it, with that red top. The tower was glowing in the morning sun, and the dome at the top matched the red terracotta of the university rooftops. I'd been there with my mother, near the bells and the pigeons and the wind. There was a net surrounding the bells so that the pigeons wouldn't roost inside them. Oh, I said, laughing a little, trying to make the connection between this structure and the very few penises I'd seen. Skin-colored cylinders that dingled down. It looks like a penis, he said again, defiantly.